Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 7th edition of the EBL Podcast. I am here with a regular co-host now. Mofo is here.
Hello, everyone.
And we're here pre-Sim 8 to talk about the trade deadline and the final Sim of the year that's coming up, moving into the playoffs. A few big deals happened during this trade deadline. A little bit busier than it has been lately. Last year was pretty busy, I think. But what were some moves that surprised you this trade deadline?
Well, obviously, the biggest two moves were the Thunder getting Tyreek Evans and Moron getting Chris Thomas.
Yeah.
I mean, the Chris Thomas trade, I think it was just too good to refuse for Moron, although it doesn't really fit his team model right now.
No, it doesn't, but Chris Thomas is only 28. If Moron builds fast, he'll still be an elite player by the time they're ready to compete. Or if not, I have all the faith in the world in Moron for being able to get the most value out of Chris Thomas. So,
I think the price wasn't too bad at all, so he just had to do it.
no, absolutely not. And
I thought Keith Frazier's been overrated for years.
Yeah,
Keith Weston is horrible, and Benjamin Gonzalez is good, but not someone you could turn down Chris Thomas for.
Yeah, absolutely, and I completely agree with you about Frazier. He just doesn't look good anymore. His defense is really bad now.
And his scoring doesn't live up to his ratings.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that too.
And then when it comes to the Tyreek Evans trade, that kind of came together in like 5 minutes. I was talking to Baldwin. Hodge offered that deal to him, and he just accepted right away.
Yeah, that's
a great trade for him because he was looking for a shooting guard for like 5 Sims, and all of a sudden Tyreek Evans just gets thrown into his lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Oklahoma didn't have too good of a Sim, but they had a few injuries, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a lot of injuries. Dean was out at the beginning. Now Salvatore's out. Curran got hurt at one point.
If they can stay healthy, I think they'll definitely make the playoffs. But they have 14 games in the last Sim out of 15 possible ones, and Sal's out for 7 of them. So hopefully,
he could realistically win 47, 48 games and still miss the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to have to win at least a majority of the games without Sal there, and then a majority of the games with Sal there too. I mean, I think it's possible. You got Tyreek and Karan, and you got to imagine it's got to be doable, but still, it's got to be frustrating for him to have such a good starting lineup right now and be on the outside looking in.
But this final Sim sets it up for him that it's up to him if he's going to make the playoffs because he plays so many games. Like, he doesn't have to rely on other teams to lose.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think it helps him that the Warriors are starting to drop a little bit. The Grizzlies had a really bad Sim, so.
The Warriors actually, they had a pretty decent Sim with these new roster settings.
Yeah. You're right. It was the Sim before. The Warriors did look pretty good. The Grizzlies were the ones I was thinking of. They had a pretty bad Sim.
The Grizzlies being bad makes no sense at all to me.
None at all.
I thought that Raheem Christmas trade was great for him, and Christmas is playing great. He's got 12 rebounds a game, 3.5 blocks a game, but he just can't win. I don't get it.
There's something wrong with the team. Not like the team that he's built. I'm talking about actually like Memphis, because this has happened to him numerous times where he has built a team that we have all thought was going to be like one of the elite teams in the West, and they've either barely made the playoffs or they've missed it entirely.
Exactly. His teams, whenever people go to Memphis, they always underachieve, and then they exceed elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't get it. Because, before you could say it was the rebounding. Fleming can't rebound very well, this and that. Then they bring in Christmas, and they're still having issues. So it's just, I don't get it.
I still think they might win the West in the playoffs if they get there.
Yeah, absolutely. But
that
the
starting five is still tough to beat.
It sure is. Like, I love the Mavericks. I think what Dub has done this year is great, but there's no reason to say the Mavericks should be higher seeded than the Grizzlies right now. They're just
really
not as good.
No sense. Really makes no sense at all.
I don't get it at all. I think if any team's gonna miss the playoffs this year in the West, it's gonna be the Grizzlies. I think the Warriors will be fine.
That would be shocking. I mean, that'd be one of the most talented teams never to make the playoffs.
I agree. Talking about the other side of that trade, the Wizards had a really good Sim following trading Tyreek.
Yeah, because Leadon got put back at point guard, and that's where he's best at.
Yeah.
And then Tracy Abrams, he won a Player of the Week at shooting guard.
Yeah, I mean they have a lot of scoring from just Leighton and Abrams, and they got Domingo now, and Carlin is playing great somehow. Like they look pretty good right now.
Even Toussaint got a good sim, and I hate Toussaint. I don't think he's any good, but he exceeded for the Wizards.
Yeah, absolutely, and Farmer obviously is going to have his minute per game issues, but the minutes he does play, he's able to contribute a lot of rebounds and some good points for them. So.
I think the Wizards they pretty much locked up a playoff spot with that last sim.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and I think that was a great trade for them. They got a lot of young pieces. I mean, Domingo's 27, but he's going to be around for a while, and he seems to only be getting better right now. Farmer's only 25. That was a pretty good trade for Hodge. I really like what he did there.
Yeah, I agree. That was a good trade for him. I think it was good for both sides, really.
Absolutely. I think that's the most he could have gotten out of Tyreek without it being unfair for either side, and Baldwin got exactly what he needed, and that was just a really good trade. It's rare when you see a superstar like that traded to where I can literally look at it and go, huh, yeah, that's good for both sides. And it definitely was.
Speaking of superstar trades, let's talk about the one you made for Larry Austin.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Why don't you start?
You gave up Adam Woodbury, Vern Wicks, and 3 draft picks to get Larry Austin.
I sure did.
I mean, he's an elite point guard, but come this offseason, he's going to be the only player on your roster.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I'm really taking a chance here on free agency. I've never gone this hard into just relying on free agency before, and I think I might be able to pull it off here. I've been doing some scouting. I've been doing some testing around on FBB, and I think I figured out some little FA trade skills going on here. So we'll see if I'm able to pull it off. I have a good plan set in place, and if not, then I have a superstar that hopefully I'll be able to trade for something. So.
And then you could always just try again next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Because next year's free agency class, I think we talked about it last podcast. It looks really good. So.
Yeah, these next 2 free agency classes could really change the league dynamics depending on how they go.
Oh yeah. I mean, when you talk about these draft classes, I mean this one and the
Omar Thomas one.
Yeah, I mean those were both great draft classes. I mean, it makes the ones after him just look like crap. So.
You mean the one with Nate Stout and Robert Bacon?
Robert Bacon, man. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I think that trade that you and Petsa made, that was good for him though. He got very good value for Austin.
Yeah, I agree. I was surprised that they ever traded Austin. Like I just never thought he was gonna, because I feel like he's shopped him around for like 5 off seasons now.
I think he held on to him a little too long.
Yeah, probably. He probably could have gotten a lot more out of him like 2 or 3 seasons ago.
But I think right now that's about max value you can get for Austin.
Yeah, and it just depends on what Vern Wicks does. I mean, if he has a really big TC, that's going to look like an amazing trade for him.
Yeah, because just look at a guy like Gerald Dunn. He looked finished 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden he's a starting point guard on the playoff team.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerald Dunn looks like a star right now. So
Vern Wicks might do that. Who knows?
Absolutely, and Vern
Wicks,
never
really know with these guys.
Vern Wicks did win Rookie of the Year last year. I mean, I know that it was a really bad class and there wasn't too many options, but I mean, it's still, to win Rookie of the Year, that's still a pretty big thing, and so hopefully he can come back from that.
It's a worthy gamble for Petsa to make on him.
Absolutely, you might as well. And if he doesn't pan out, then you have some picks to play around with and hopefully find another point guard.
My favorite thing about the Raptors roster right now is that he's got Adam Woodbury and Ernest Fowler on the same team.
Yeah, yes, I agree.
I wish he would start on both and just have the best handling team in EBL.
And you know what's interesting about that? I noticed today they have literally the exact same height and weight. They're both 7 foot 238.
Wow, yeah. And they're also the 2 best handlers on the team.
Yeah. Even better than Vern Wicks. So that's something right there.
That's fun. That's a fun combo to have right there. I think they're both his backup big men right now. I wish you would start them both first and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, who's he starting instead? Cameron Ridley and
Nate Stout.
Nate Stout, yeah. I mean, Nate Stout looks good, but he can't rebound. If he could ever get his rebounding up.
Yeah, this is only his second year. He's still got a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It just worries me because a lot of those guys that start with bad rebounding never get better.
Yeah, like Marcus Fleming.
Oh, like Marcus Fleming. Yeah, he's been B- like since he came in the league, hasn't he?
He's fluctuated from B to B minus, but he's never been very good at it.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the attribute is. He's hovered around that 10, less than 10 area for a long time now.
But now that one sim's left, let's talk about the playoff. Let's talk about the playoffs because right now the West playoffs is looking like it's going to be really, really competitive.
Yeah.
And the East looks very, very top heavy.
The East, I think the East is almost a lock. I can't imagine any team that's not in the playoffs right now having a good enough sim to get in.
Pretty much. So you think the Magic and the Bulls will hold on to the spot?
Unless the Bulls continue their free fall and someone like the Hawks or the Raptors just kind of hovers around where they are. But even then, I mean, I think the Magic will probably end up being the 7th seed with the Bulls being the 8th seed, and I could see the Wizards grabbing the 4th seed from the Celtics.
Yeah, those all are realistic. But does that mean you're conceding our bet with the Hornets? That they're going to make the playoffs?
Probably. I'll concede it. I mean, I'm gonna wait until it's a proven thing, but yeah, you probably got that one. So.
But it's highly possible that only 4 teams in the East could have a winning record by the end of the season.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And even then, it's entirely possible only 3 of them will, because the Celtics aren't that far over 500.
You're right, yeah, that's why it's so top-heavy. It's tough to see any team but the top 3 winning the East this year.
I don't know. Maybe. I didn't think the Hornets would play this well with Cool, but they are. I could see them maybe making a surprise run, because I think if they would have had this same team from the beginning of the year, they'd probably have a better record than they do now.
I would agree with you, but I think his bigs are just a huge weakness.
I mean, I agree. I agree with that completely. I've never really liked Michael King all that much, and they don't really have anyone else. Robert Johnson should not be starting on any team. Same with Brian Rodriguez.
Yeah, I agree with that. Johnson and King just aren't good enough to win in the playoffs.
No, absolutely. I mean, but I don't really see much else that they could do. I mean, I guess they could try Ndiaye or whatever. John Henson's not a good option.
He's got no other options, but those options are his best ones, but they're not going to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, he just needs to hope that Willis and Cool and Dunn just absolutely explode. Otherwise, he doesn't have a shot. So
Adrian Cool's got some good playoff history, so you never know with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dunn, has Dunn ever really been in the playoffs? I don't think he has. With the Spurs,
I don't think so.
Maybe no, because he was bad they were bad when he was on the Spurs. So maybe Dunn can pull out something too. And I don't think Willis has ever really done much in the playoffs either. So, it'll be interesting there because we have 2 fresh faces in the playoffs with Willis and Dunn, 2 of his best players, and Cool has really good history. So you never know; they could end up doing something.
The playoffs is all about star power, and the Hornets they have 2 all-stars at shooting guard and small forward, so you never really know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I wouldn't really count out the Bulls either, because they have a lot of star power with DJ White and
Shannon Scott.
But
their bigs are possibly even worse than New Orleans.
No, but they have Grant Jarrett, who's leading the league in blocks right now.
And he's up there in rebounds too. So
he's the proven playoff guy too, Grant Jarrett.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that could happen. If he had any better starting center. I mean, I don't even know who he's starting right now.
I think he started Stephon Blair for Sim 7.
I mean, might as well try it. Why not?
Yeah, I don't know what I would do for him. I'd probably have to start Blair and just go from there.
Yeah, because it's better than Myers Leonard or Marco Grunewald. So,
but Blair's 5.4 points a game, and he's averaging 2 turnovers a game too.
Yeah.
And he's shooting horrible.
But I mean, he's pretty good rebounding. He's averaging 8.7 and only 26. So you never know.
But he started Myers Leonard for most of the year. Then he put Blair in for Sim 7 and had a horrible sim.
That's very true too. So you also got to consider that.
But then moving on to the West, this is really a crapshoot for the seeding wise right now.
It's just so competitive.
I could see a lot of things happening. I think the top 2 are pretty much set.
Yeah, I agree.
But then after that, I really have no idea. Utah's kind of fading a little bit right now.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm worried about. I think Minnesota's going to end up being the 3 seed. And I think Jazz will probably fall to 4. And I've got the Mavericks at 5, with the Spurs at 6, Warriors at 7, and I'm going to say Thunder at 8. I'm going to say Grizzlies miss.
I would probably go 1 Nuggets, 2 Suns, 3 Jazz. I still think they're too good to fall from the 3 spot. 4 Spurs, 5 T-Wolves, 6 Mavs, 7 Grizzlies, 8 Warriors. I think the Thunder, the injury to Salvatore is just going to be too much to overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not. Baldwin, it'd just be so disheartening for him to put that team together with that starting lineup and then have them miss. I mean, that would just be, ugh.
Well, how about the Clippers right now, too? They're like 19-5 since trading Matt Yoder, and they're going to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. I was wondering if the Clippers could sneak in. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and they're only, what are they? They're only 3 games back of the 8th seed.
It still seems very unlikely, though.
Very unlikely. I find it interesting that both the Clippers and the Mavericks are both doing better after the trade. Because you could say, well, Yoder was probably a cancer for them, but yet he's doing really well with the Mavericks, so.
I think the Mavericks are just well put together.
Yeah, that's a really good looking team there. I mean, I didn't expect it at the beginning of the year. Of course, no one expected Marquise Teague to lead the league in assist to turnover ratio. So.
Yeah, he's flashing back 10 years or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
the thing that really makes the Mavs dangerous is their defense.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say that. You wouldn't really think that would be a case with Lau Devane, but he's really a good defender for being a C+ guy.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's a good scorer too, obviously.
But Songnu just makes a huge impact. He's an elite defender.
Yeah, Songnu. There's just something about him that it changes every team that he's on.
He's one of the best centers in EBL, hands down, easily.
And Chris Brown is really underrated defensively. Also, I'm not speaking for his rebounding or his scoring or anything like that, but he's a really good defender. And those few games where he was out, the Mavericks looked pretty bad without him. So he's obviously a pretty big piece for them, too.
He's also an underrated passer. 3 assists a game is pretty good.
Yeah, well, he's got that B- handling, and he shoots a little bit from 3. He doesn't do it he doesn't do it very often, but he can hit them, so I think
he does enough to overcome his lack of rebounding, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And he shoots a good percentage, too, from the field. He's at around 46 if you round up, so.
Yeah, I really like this Mavs team. I think they're going to make some playoff noise.
They're very efficient is what it is. Like, there's nothing great about them. They're just very efficient at what they do. I mean, they're very well rounded, so.
And then there's let's start at the top with Denver. What do you think about Denver right now?
I like what Polo is doing this sim. I don't know if he did it last sim too, where he's starting Knowles at center and Wiggins at power forward.
No, he last sim he went Kearney at point guard, Lewis at shooting guard, Wiggins at small forward, Knowles at power forward, and Fang at center.
Yeah, I really like what he's doing this sim. I think Wiggins at power forward with Kearney at small forward, Lewis and Irving. I think that's a really good starting lineup still.
I talked to him about that. He said he's trying to get the maximum talent he can out of his starting 5, which is that lineup right there.
Yeah, I mean you have to do it at that point. And Wiggins will do fine at power forward. I mean he's a little bit undersized, but I mean it doesn't even matter really. It's Wiggins.
Polo, he's put out 5 or 6 different lineups this year. He's trying to find out the best one for the playoffs, which is pretty smart by him.
Yeah, absolutely, because he knows he's going to make it, so it doesn't matter if he takes a little bit of hit in the regular season.
It doesn't even matter what seed he gets, really. He's still the best team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think Cheng Fang will do fine off the bench. He's definitely not starting quality.
He's definitely not a starter, I agree.
But for him to have that defense and for them to be able to keep that defense when Knowles and Wiggins aren't on the court, I think that'll help. So.
Well, then there's Phoenix. Phoenix is kind of running with the Pacific right now.
Yeah, Phoenix is. I mean, they did this last year, and I didn't expect them to do it last year. And now they're doing it again this year, and I definitely didn't expect it this year. I mean,
Derrick Rose is averaging 20 and 10. He's just, no matter what age he is, he's still an elite player.
I know. I feel like we were talking about this last year with, I can't believe Derrick Rose is doing this again, blah, blah, blah. But he's a year later, he's a year older, and he's still doing it.
And then he survived a lung injury to Beasley. Juan Kuhn still can't rebound. Charles Bond's pretty good.
Yeah.
Brian Brunn's a good bench player. He's got some weaknesses, but his team is clearly one of the best in the league. still.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Braun and Beasley kind of make up a little bit for Kuhn's lack of rebounding. So, and Blackshear too.
Good point. Yeah.
Blackshear's
And Charles Bond. Charles Bond was an all-star this year.
Yeah, I mean, I really like Charles Bond. I think he's an underrated piece for this team.
I agree. I like him a lot more than Juan Kuhn.
Oh yeah, easily. I mean, Juan Kuhn. I mean, he's a really efficient scorer, but besides that.
But again, I feel like the same thing might happen to this Phoenix team again. They win the Pacific and then they lose in round 1 to like Dallas or Golden State, whoever they play.
Yeah,
Would that really be that much of an upset though?
No.
Last year was a huge upset, but this year I don't think so.
If they get matched up against the Grizzlies or the Warriors, I think they're done because the Suns are really. I mean, they're built on offense. Their points per game are really high, and I think Memphis or the Warriors could outscore them easily in a shootout. So,
Phoenix is the second best record right now, but I feel like they might. I hate to say this, but they might have the least chance of winning the West in the playoffs out of all these teams.
Yeah, I could see that.
Like, I really think Golden State or Memphis or Dallas, they'll have a better shot of winning than Phoenix does.
Yeah, I agree with that. Utah too.
Well, Utah, yeah, speaking of Utah, I asked Polo the other day what team worries him the most in the West. He said easily Utah, but I can see why. Because, I mean, it's built like a Denver team. It's built with great defensive big men and Johnson and Birch. And then he's got great perimeter players in Virgil, Narn, and Smith.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how good does Dale Smith look this year? I mean, it's just crazy.
As good as he's been this year, I still need to see it in the playoffs before I really believe in him.
Absolutely, but I mean, it's a huge turnaround for him this year because I mean, he wasn't this good last year at all. No, he was
nowhere. He's up 8 points a game. He's up almost an assist a game. He's down in turnovers.
Yeah,
up in rebounding. He just all of a sudden must have had a huge training camp.
Yeah, absolutely, and Devonta looks like a genius right now, going with Dale Smith over Shannon Scott.
Yeah, although Shannon Scott stopped performing him on offense.
Yeah, but his defense was always a problem. I mean, and Dale Smith's doing about the same with about the same turnover and assist ratio with much better defense. So.
Yeah, it was a good move for him, and Dale Smith's about to get paid this offseason. You just got to hope he can keep him.
Yeah, absolutely. Dale Smith's going to be a hot commodity, I think.
But I think Utah's faded a little bit, but I think they're kind of treading water right now. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens to them in the regular season because they're gonna be there in the playoffs, and they're gonna be a really tough team to beat.
Yeah, they're just waiting, I think, right now, and I think their depth really helps. I mean, Tane's son is killing it off the bench. I never saw that one coming.
Yeah, Danny Young and Pete Harris are both great players, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they got Whiteside, who's just a little miniature version of Birch and Marcellus Johnson coming off the bench of big man. I mean, they're not missing a step, so.
I mean, if I were going to pick a team other than Denver to win the West, it would easily be Utah.
I like Utah, and I still really like the Timberwolves. I know you're not sold on them because of the way that
their style of play.
Yeah, their style of play. But I really like them this year. I really think Van Stipp has taken that next step into being an elite point guard in this league, and it's taken him a few years. He's 27 now, but I think he's looking really good this year.
His turnovers are kind of creeping back up a little bit.
Yeah, but they're still under 3 right now, and his assists are higher than they've ever been. So.
Yeah, but I mean his stats are kind of falling more as the Sims go on because he was over 12 assists a game at one point and around 2.5 turnovers. It's kind of creeping back toward the normal range for him.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to look at everyone else on the team who's also really good handlers. I mean, Frank Perez is getting 3.6 assists a game. Tyree's getting 2.7. Duran's getting 4.0 off the bench. I mean, there's a lot of assist love going around between the guys. So,
but I think this team, if they're going to make any noise in the playoffs, it's going to be because of Kenneth Marshall and his defense.
Oh yeah, I love Kenneth Marshall. I think he's one of the best. He might be the best big man in EBL right now. I think he is so undervalued.
It's a very good argument to make for him being the best.
I just think I know he can't score all that great, but
he doesn't need to.
Yeah, and he does it efficiently too. You know, he's averaging around 14 right now on 44% shooting. That's more than enough that you need for someone who is constantly top of the league of rebounding and blocks and winning defensive players of the year. You know, I mean, he's just good. He's just really, really good.
I think I said it before. If this were real life, he would get some real MVP candidates because he's the main reason the T-Wolves are so good now.
Yeah. I mean, they had almost the same team last year, but with Karan instead of Marshall and Perez, and they look much better this year.
But I have never seen a team that plays like this really be that successful in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, but I mean, when Indiana won the playoffs, we said, or when they were in the playoffs and they won the finals in 2016, we said the same thing with them having a short shooting guard and their point guard, this and that and this, and then they ended up winning. So, I mean, you just never know, really.
I mean, they're going to have to outscore teams, and it's possible, but I don't think it's sustainable in the playoffs. Like, if they go up against Denver, the guy like Pierre Lewis is just going to shut down Tyree, and then what do they do?
Yeah, that's true.
Because they can't play defense.
But I've looked through the box scores, and on games where Tyree has gotten shut down, I mean, Van Sipp and Frank Perez have really stepped up. So, I mean, if they can have that happen for him.
Yeah, but then you have Kyrie Irving and Andrew Wiggins against those guys.
Maybe not. If Andrew Wiggins plays power forward, then Perez might be matched up against Kearney.
But Kearney's at A defense, too. It doesn't really matter who you face.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you never know. I guess we'll see. Maybe...
It remains to be seen how the T-Wolves do. Just making the playoffs at this point is a really good step for Koo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's put together a really good team this year, no matter what they do in the playoffs. So,
all right, then we move on to the Spurs right now. The new GM hasn't really done much with his team.
No, not at all. But
he doesn't really need to because his team is so good already.
Right, absolutely. I'm not sure. I'm sure what I remember when he first came in. His depth chart looked a little bit funny. He had this and that going. I like that he's starting Tyler Herron now. That was one of my big concerns when he first came in, that he was starting Tim Craig over Herron, and I didn't like that at all.
He kind of flip-flopped those a couple times, but he's sticking with Herron now.
Yeah, which is good. I think he probably has one of the best possible lineups that he could have going right now.
But I think, again, his bigs are a weakness, though, because I do not like Dakari Johnson. I think he's average at best. And I think Herron, he's a huge liability on offense.
He's a liability on offense for sure, but I think he's a shutdown defender, and he's actually rebounding pretty well this year. So
yeah, he's a good starter, but I think you could live with him as a starter and win still. But then there's a guy like Joe Brake who's a great offensive player, but he's a liability on defense.
Yeah, I mean they have. I kind of feel the same about Andrew Harrison a little bit. He's never proven much to me on defense, even with his A-. Even with his A- defense there, but...
Well, he's really having a down year. His 3-point percentage is down like 100 points.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with him this year.
I don't know either, because he has about the same attributes. And it's not like the new GM's doing something completely absurd with him or something, so it's just a down year, is what it comes...
And then Gary Hamilton, he's kind of heading in the wrong direction. His assists are down this year and his turnovers are up.
Gary Hamilton, I noticed this the other day, is down in literally every single stat this year besides blocks per game, which he is up 1. But,
oh yeah, I just noticed that too. You're right.
But he's at least gone down a little bit in each stat that matters for him. I mean, just every single one across the board.
That's very. I mean, Joe Brake probably has something to do with that, but that's very disconcerting right now.
Yeah, that's very worrying. I mean, he's down. He's down from 45% to 43% from the field. He's down free throw percentage, and it wouldn't be so much of a concern if it was just his assists and points that he went down in, but his percentages too. I mean, percentages are very worrying for me.
I mean, the Spurs, they seem like they're just a second round team and that's it.
Yeah. I agree. It would honestly really surprise me if the Spurs made it to the Western Conference Finals or past that. I mean, I don't see them. So when I look at them and I look at them matching up against any team, I can't see them beating the Jazz, the Nuggets, obviously. I can't see them beating the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, the Warriors. I can't see them beating anyone almost. So
you think they're a first round team and that's it?
I think they're a first round team. I was about to say that. I originally came into this thing they were a second round team, but now that I'm starting to look at it, I don't see them getting past the first round. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if they did. I would be absolutely shocked if they made it to the Western Conference Finals, but I think they could make it to the second round. I just don't see it.
All right, then we got Dallas, who I think we talked enough about already.
Yeah, Dallas has been talked enough about.
Then Memphis. I think we talked about Memphis already enough. And then Golden State. I mean, Golden State, they're kind of clinging. They had a good sin last sim after a horrible sin the previous one, but I think reality, he just changes his lineup so often that it's tough to get a read on what kind of team they are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to change your team up every once in a while, but when you change it so much, it's just, there's something involving chemistry in this game. I think even GMs like Polo and people like that will tell you that you need to stick with a team for a little bit to really have them get a feel for playing together. And when you just change everything about it so much, I mean, he's gone from an outside offense to an inside offense. Bond starting a point guard, Farrell starting a point guard, Casey Hill starting a point guard. Like, you just can't get a read for anything. It's just not good.
Exactly. And he started like Dustin Sanders for most of the season at center. Now he's barely even playing him.
Right. I don't get it.
Now Steve Harris, he was starting most of the season. Now he's like a backup at best. I mean, it just makes no sense sometimes. What Riley does.
No.
I think he outthinks himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good GM, but he tries to do too much, is what it comes down to.
I think Golden State will make the playoffs. Well, yeah, Golden State will make the playoffs, but I just don't think they'll be good enough to win the series.
No.
But I think they have a huge future still with Mike Reynolds and Lester Amato and Bond. If they get Bonds back and Harris, I think they're going to be at the top of the West in 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely, I agree. I like his starting lineup for the Sims, so we'll see. I think he'll definitely probably make the playoffs. I don't like Gilchrist starting. I really think Steve Harris should be starting over Gilchrist.
That's a tough call. Gilchrist is more of an all-around player than Harris.
Yeah, absolutely. Harris just provides. I mean, the main thing on this team is scoring, and so I mean, I just don't understand why you'd. I don't know, and I'm not a huge fan of Casey Hill either. Obviously, I drafted him, but.
He's kind of quietly A+ handling and A defense, but I just don't think he's going to live up to those ratings.
No, absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me if the Warriors missed. I wouldn't be shocked if the Warriors missed the playoffs. I do think
I wouldn't
be. Make it.
And then there's Oklahoma City, who I think we talked about enough too. But they made a couple trades at the trade deadline. They got CJ Leslie back. They got Aaron Ross, who I really love Aaron Ross.
Yeah, I agree.
And then they got Tyreek. But do you think those moves are good short-term and long-term for Oklahoma City?
I think those are good moves for him. I still love CJ Leslie. I know he's a little bit down this year, but I mean, he's still a great defender despite the B+ defense. And his rebounds, he's a really good rebounder. He can do this and that. And Tommy Hamilton just seems to be on a huge decline, so it doesn't hurt to have someone.
I don't know what's wrong with Tommy Hamilton. Like 5 years ago, he was one of the best big men in EBL, winning a title with Indiana, and now all of a sudden, he's just fallen victim of the big man curse in EBL, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing that happened with Drummond and Randall, and Drummond's kind of bounced back a little bit, so maybe Hamilton can too. But
and then Aaron Ross, his shooting percentages are just ridiculous year in and year out.
I really like Aaron Ross, and I think that was one of the biggest trades that Baldwin made. I know he got Tyreek, but he gave up almost all of his depth to get Tyreek. And then that was one of the first things I asked him. I said, what are you going to do for a bench? And then not too long later, he made that trade for Aaron Ross. And I said, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, his bench is good now with Henry Luna, CJ Leslie, Aaron Ross, and Chris Martin. I mean, that's a pretty good bench.
That's a very good bench. I mean, it looks good now. So
I think Oklahoma City, if they find a way to get into the playoffs, then they're gonna be a really tough out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would really love to see Denver versus Oklahoma City in round 1.
I would too. Denver could go down if Oklahoma City matches.
If they're 100% healthy and Denver doesn't. I mean Denver. I don't know what he would do against them. I don't know if he played Wiggins a power forward or not. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it'll just depend on how the sim goes for Denver. I think this will be the telling sim for what he starts.
But I think Tyreek versus Pierre Lewis, Wiggins versus Curran, and Nenad versus either Kearney or Irving. I think those would all be great matchups. Love to see them.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
All right, but now that we got some playoff talk out of the way, do you want to make some predictions on what do you think will happen?
oh yeah, let's do it. What are we gonna base this off of? Do we want to do what we think the seeding will be, and then like some matchups from there, or?
Yeah, sure, that works.
All right,
You go first. Do the East first.
all right, I think I already stated in the East. I got the Pistons as the number 1 seed. I got the Knicks as number 2, Bucks number 3, Wizards number 4. Um, I'll do Hornets 5, Celtics 6, Magic 7, Bulls 8. And if that's the matchups, I got the Pistons winning against the Magic, probably in a clean sweep.
You said the Bulls.
Yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. Sorry, the Pistons sweeping the Bulls. I got the Knicks probably beating out the Magic in 5. The Bucks be matched up against the Celtics at that point, and that would be a tough matchup. I think the Bucks would probably take it in 7. With the Wizards and the Hornets matching up, and I probably have the Hornets in 6.
All right, if it were up to me, I would probably go 1 Pistons, 2 Knicks, 3 Bucks, 4 Celtics, 5 Wizards, 6 Hornets, 7 Magic, 8 Bulls. So I just have one change.
Okay.
And I would go Pistons over Bulls easily, and probably 4 or 5.
Right.
Knicks over Magic in 6 or so. And then I think I would probably pick. I think I might go for the upset. I think Hornets over Bucks.
I agree. I like that.
And then probably Celtics over Wizards in 7, just because it always happens. Every time they play, the Celtics always win.
Absolutely.
All right, and then in the second round, you would have the Pistons versus the Wizards, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be Pistons, Wizards, and Knicks, Hornets.
Who would you have in that one?
I think I'd have the Pistons beating the Wizards probably in 5. And I think I'd even go to say I think the Hornets could take the Knicks out in 6.
Wow, Pistons, Hornets, Eastern Conference Finals.
See, this is weird for me because I didn't even expect the Hornets to make the playoffs, and now that they're doing pretty well, I really like them. So
Yeah,
it's a complete turnaround from what it was.
I think in the second round I would have the Pistons over the Celtics because I think the Celtics just don't match up well with the Pistons.
Right.
And I would have I think I would take the Hornets too. I think the Hornets over the Knicks.
Yeah, I just really like them.
And then I think it's inevitable that the Pistons win the East. I think they would dispatch of the Hornets pretty easily in the Eastern Conference Finals. What about you?
I want to go for an upset here, but I think you're right. I think the Pistons would probably be able to beat the Hornets. I wouldn't be absolutely shocked if that's how it played out, if the Hornets were to beat the Pistons. So
I think the Pistons, they're just a class of the East for sure. They're just the best team, clearly.
yeah, I agree. It just makes me wonder if the Hornets had this lineup all year, would they be the class of the East? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think their bigs are just going to hold them back a little too much.
There's just a lot of questions there. But I could almost say the same for Detroit. They don't have good bigs. I mean, they have Jonas and Randall.
Randall's pretty good.
Randall's decent, yeah. But, I mean, they started Edgar Sutherland all year, and they did decent, so.
Yeah, I think Sutherland might be a little underrated defensively, though.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the whole team is good defensively, so.
All right, now on the West predictions.
Oh.
What's your seeding?
I don't even remember what I had. I've already said the West.
I remember.
I think I had the Nuggets 1, Suns 2. I think I had the T-Wolves 3, Jazz 4, Mavericks 5, Spurs 6, Grizzlies 7, Thunder.
So you had
8.
the Grizzlies out.
Oh yeah, that's right. I had the Grizzlies out. I had the Grizzlies, not the Warriors out. I had Warriors 7, Thunder 8. That's what it was.
All right, I think I will go Nuggets, Suns, Jazz, Spurs, T-Wolves, Mavs, Grizzlies, and Warriors.
Yeah. Yeah, because you only had the one change with the Spurs and the T-Wolves.
All right, and if I would take the Nuggets over the Warriors, because I just don't think that's much of a matchup.
Right.
And then I would take the Suns. Grizzlies Suns would be a really tough one.
I know.
I would take the Grizzlies in 7 to beat the Suns.
Ooh.
Sorry, Jerry.
Yeah. Sorry, Jerry.
And then the Jazz, I think Jazz and Mavs would be a really good matchup.
I agree.
Both really good defensive teams. But I would take the Jazz in 6. And then Spurs T-Wolves, I would take the Spurs in 6 also.
I would have, I want to go for a first round upset so bad with the Nuggets losing in the first, but I don't know. I don't think I can do it. I'd go Nuggets in 7 over the Thunder. And then I would go Suns in 6 over the Warriors. I think they match up well against the Warriors with their scoring, and then T-Wolves, Mavs.
No, I think you had T-Wolves Spurs, right? You had the Spurs being 6.
Yeah, and then what would it be? Spurs Mavs? Or no, T-Wolves Spurs Jazz Mavs. That's what it'd be, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'd pick the T-Wolves over the Spurs in 6, and then
Jazz Mavs. So
I'd pick the Jazz over the Mavericks in 5 or 6.
All right, in the second round, I think that would be Denver. My scenario would be Denver versus San Antonio. I don't think that'll be much of anything.
No.
Denver will win in 5.
Yeah.
And then I had the Grizzlies and the Jazz. The Jazz will dispatch the Grizzlies in 5 or 6.
Yep.
All right.
I think in mine I had it'd be Denver versus Denver versus
Utah.
Utah. Yeah, that's right. That'd be a really good matchup. I'd love to see that in the second round.
That's my West Finals right there.
Yeah. I'd go Denver in 7.
That's really tough. Yeah.
And then I have Suns T-Wolves. I'd go T-Wolves in 6.
You got the KWO in the Western Finals.
I do, but I don't think they would win. I'd go Nuggets in 6 there. I think the Nuggets are primed to make the Western Conference Finals.
I'm gonna make a prediction here. I'm gonna believe in my man Devonta.
Oh, there you go.
Picking the Jazz over the Nuggets in the West Finals in 6.
So you have the Jazz moving on to the finals?
I have the Jazz and the Pistons in the finals. You have the Pistons and the Nuggets, right?
I want to change it. I'm gonna go Hornets to win the East. I gotta go. I gotta go Hornets. I've been debating this even while I'm sitting here doing the East. I've been going, do I want the Hornets to win the East? Like I'm gonna go Hornets win the East this year. I think that's a great team SC's put together.
You got the Nuggets and the Hornets.
I got the Nuggets and the Hornets. I think the Nuggets will take care of them though.
Yeah, I think the Nuggets. That'd be like a great matchup for the Nuggets. They would love to see the Hornets in the finals.
Absolutely, I would too. I mean, I've seen the way Gerald Dunn has played all year because he's been on my team. I've been following him since he got traded to the Hornets, and I think he's just playing phenomenally, both defensively, handling, offensively, and I think Coole's turnovers down a little bit, so yeah. I think that'll help. And then Willis is an all-star. He's great too. So I think they could do it. I think they're a finals team, but I don't think they'll beat the Nuggets. It'll be a good matchup, but Nuggets are just too strong at this point.
I think in my scenario, the Jazz and the Pistons, I think that'd be a very entertaining finals.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would lean toward the Jazz, but I think the Pistons could easily win the title this year, even if they play Denver.
Yeah, it's possible.
I'm gonna stick with Devonta. I'm gonna go with the Jazz in 6.
All right.
To win the EBL title.
Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see it.
All right, now we spent a lot of time in the playoffs. Let's quickly preview the GM of the Year race. Who's your top 5?
Oh, top 5. I got in no certain order right now. I'm just naming the ones I think can do it. I got Devonta, I got Koo, I got Dub, I got SC, and I got GBB.
All right, I think I have an order right now. I would say 1 is Devonta.
Okay.
2 is Dub.
Yep.
3 is Koo. 4 is MPH, and 5 is probably, let's say Polo. Let's keep him in the top 5.
All right.
I think Devonta, just as I said early in the year, I think he's got to win it this year. He's built his team so well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's made a few good moves during the offseason. Normally his teams don't change too much and they just kind of grow, so it's hard for me to give him a GM of the Year candidate, but I mean, he went out, he got Birch, he got Nairn, he got Dale Smith. I mean, he changed up his team a lot.
Every move he made has worked out for him.
Yeah, I agree.
Pete Harris, Danny Young, Dale Smith, Nairn, Birch, they're all working out.
I agree. I say Devonta is probably the favorite in GM of the Year this year. So,
and would be well deserved.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, but now switching a little format here, we got a special treat for the podcast. We got an article.
Yes, absolutely. An audio article. It's like an ebook, but not. It's better because it's us.
And this article is the top 15 players in EBL who are 25 years of age and under. The teams we would build around, the players we would build around if we were building a team right now.
Like a value article with an age restriction to it. So
yes. Now I will apologize right up front to these players who do not make my list. Benjamin Gonzalez, Josh Grundy, Joe Brake, Lyle Devane, and Marcus Fleming just missed the cut. They did not make the list.
I only have one of those on my list, so I will also apologize to the ones that did not.
But then I have my next 5 out. I will give those first.
All right, go ahead. I did not do that, so go ahead.
These players did not make the top 15, although it was really close for each of them. Sun Ma from the Clippers, Dale Smith from the Jazz, Chris Willis from the Hornets, Aubin Boutot from the Magic, and Jim Castanon from the Knicks. All came very close, but did not make my list.
Interestingly enough, one of those is very high on my list, but a few of those are also off too. So apologies there.
All right, so we're going to go through this one at a time. We're each going to give our 15 and 14, 13, etc., and then we'll give some discussion on why the player belongs there and whatever else.
Absolutely, and I've decided I'm going to figure out exactly when this starts in the YouTube video and make a direct link to that on the forums. That way, if people just want to hear the article, they could be joining in literally like right now and just listen to that part. But I would recommend you going back and listening to the rest of the podcast because it is awesome. So
yes. All right. So do you want me to start with my 15?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. This was really tough because those players I just listed are very deserving.
I agree.
Especially Sun Ma. I really thought about putting him there, but number 15 on my list is Anthony Jones of the Grizzlies, who's 21 years of age.
Interesting.
I think his ratings right now B, A minus, C, and only 21 years old. I think he's just got a huge upside. I just couldn't leave him off. He could be the best shooting guard in the league in a few years.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons I really wanted to do this list with you is our varying different opinions. We are very always known for having so far different opinions. So it's interesting that you put Jones here. We'll get to that in a little bit why, but yeah, I think he's definitely deserving of being on this list, and he looks like he's going to be a really good player in the future. So
all right, so who's your 15?
I got Chris Willis of the Hornets. I debated back and forth on this for a long time because he, attribute-wise, he is nothing special. He doesn't look like any. If I saw him on a team without looking at statistics, I think he was just your prototypical small forward that got like 16 points a game and didn't do too much. But I mean, he is shooting phenomenally this year. 21 points a game, 7 rebounds a game. He was an all-star, and he's only 22. I wanted to put him a little bit higher even, but if he just has any bad TC, he's going to drop significantly. I mean, he's not good enough to make up for any bad TC at this point. So
very valid point.
Yeah.
I mean, FPB showed his value this year, making him an all-star. He's one of the up-and-coming small forwards in the league for sure.
Absolutely. And I put him here because I don't think he will have that bad TC. I think he's actually going to keep getting better. And SC's grooming a very good young team there in New Orleans. So.
All right, I approve of that 15. He barely missed my list, but I think I could see why you put him there.
Yeah.
All right, now on the 14. Number 14 for my list is Salvatore Perozzi from the Thunder, and he is 24 years of age.
Yep, absolutely.
I think his defense was the reason I thought about putting him off the list and keeping him kind of low.
Yeah.
But there's no denying that he's just easily a 20-10 guy every season.
He's really good. I mean, his defense. It does worry me a little bit.
He's got 11 foul-outs this year. Which is
yeah, that too.
He doesn't block shots. He doesn't really shoot threes or anything to offset that like Songnu does. I mean,
and he's also never been on a good team. Like that's a problem too. Like even on this Thunder team that should be better than they are, they're still not with him. You know what I mean? Like that hurts too.
But bottom line is he's a 20-10 guy, and he's only 24 years old. He's got plenty of time to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's you can't go wrong with putting him on the list here. So I mean,
All right, so who's your 14?
I've got Joe Brake, San Antonio. I debated having him on this list at all, but his career numbers are just so efficient when it comes to scoring and rebounding and just doing whatever. I think his value's diminished a little bit, being used as small forward, but he's having a career year in field goal percentage and 3-point percentage. His turnovers are around where they should be, or where they normally are for his career. I think he's having a really good year this year, despite being played out of position. And I'm not the biggest fan of him. He hasn't won much, even on your good Bucks teams. But the same argument could be said for Sal or a few other players who are probably going to be on this list. So
my thoughts on Joe Brake, I drafted him after all, but
right.
I think he's a really good offensive player at this point, but I just couldn't put him on the list because his defense is just a huge letdown, I think.
I strongly agree, but I think for him to only be 24 and to be such a good scorer, and he's literally one of the most efficient scorers in the league, just based off his points per game and all of his percentages. I couldn't leave him off. I think his defense could get better. He's still young, and he's such a good scorer that I had to put him on here, so...
He didn't make my list because of the two things, his defense and his handling. I just don't like either one of them for him.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, but now 13 for me is Ross Falk of the Heat.
Interesting. I debated putting him on this list.
Now, this was a tough one for me. I actually wanted to put him higher.
Yeah.
I really like Ross Falk as a shooting guard. But I couldn't find a way to put him any higher because he's really limited as a shooting guard. Because I don't think he can really play point guard very effectively in this league.
No, I agree.
I think he just turns it over way too much. But as shooting guard, I think he's an all-star caliber player. I think he shoots well. He plays good defense. He handles. He really does everything well at shooting guard.
He definitely, the one thing that concerns me is just how fast he's come on, because a lot of guys like that, they come on so strong, and then they just kind of fizzle out after a little while. So, given it like another season or two, if he's still playing this well or even better, I will definitely admit he's one of the best young shooting guards in this league. But I mean, he's only really had like 2 productive seasons at this point, so it's just hard for me to concede that he's one of the best. He does look fantastic right now, though. I mean, if there's one great thing that Seth did as a GM here, it's trying him out of shooting guard. So
yes, definitely. All right, so who's your 13?
13, I got Francisco Page of the Blazers.
Wow. 13 for Page. That is a shock.
13 for Page. I know. I knew that was going to get some criticisms from around the league.
Let's hear an explanation on that one.
I hate his handling. I hate it so much. I've never had a problem with someone's handling as much as I do with Francisco Page. He has F-. That literally means he probably has like 10 or less in the stats that you need for handling. At this point, it'd be lucky if he can catch a pass. I don't think it's important for big men to have great handling, but when you have a starter who is F- in handling, it really drags everything down. I mean, his second year in the league, he averaged 3 turnovers a game. He's averaging 2.5 this year. I mean, those are the same numbers that Adrian Cool and Joe Brake are averaging turnover-wise that we have such a big problem with, and he's a power forward. He's averaging 0.8 assists per game this year and 2.5 turnovers. That is one of the worst things ever. I could see why you have him there. I'll give my rebuttal a little bit when he's on my list later on. Absolutely.
But I could see why you have him low.
I definitely think he's an elite player. I mean, for him to be on this list despite his F- handling tells you how good he is with everything else. I mean, he's one of the best blockers in the league. He's one of the best scorers at power forward in the league. His stats are down a little bit this year because JB's been starting him at center, and that's out of position for him. I don't think he probably makes the best center, but he hasn't been playing bad, so there's definitely value there. But his handling, it's just there are a lot of big men that I like in this league, and for me to really put them in order, they had to have a big flaw, and Page's was his handling. That's why he's 13 here. So,
all right, so I have a feeling this guy's much higher on your list than he is on mine, but number 12 is Brian Freeman of the Knicks. Who's 23 years old right now.
There you go.
I think another guy drafted right here, by the way.
Right.
I think he had the huge Sim 1 this year that kind of got his value skyrocketed, but ever since then his stats are falling a little bit. I mean, his points per game are up, but his shooting percentage is a career low right now, which means he's just shooting more. He's not really shooting any more effectively.
Right.
And I think he's a really good shot blocker. He's a really good rebounder. He's just a really good all-around player, but I don't think he's a superstar player.
Yeah, I could definitely see arguments made for that. So
I just don't think he'll ever score enough to be a superstar big man.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he definitely belongs on this list, and putting him 12 was tough. But I would take him ahead of the three guys that put him below, so I had to put him there.
Yeah, I had a lot of trouble making this list. I mean, when you're ranking like the top 15 best players, it's really hard to put them in order. So, obviously there are arguments that can be made for being lower and being higher for everyone. So
exactly, it was tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so who's your number 12?
My number 12, and just like you, I imagine this person's gonna be way higher on your list than he is mine. I got Gary Hamilton at number 12.
That's interesting. You'll see later on where he is, but I could see why you have him 12.
I just, going back to what I said earlier about how he has dropped in literally every single stat this year, that just really worries me. And, I've never been the biggest Gary Hamilton supporter. Obviously, you and I have an ongoing bet that he'll never win a title. So
can't wait for that one.
Right. But I actually have a little bit of statistical evidence to support me this year. And maybe it'll change next year. Maybe he'll have an upsurge. But for right now, for him to just drop in literally every important stat that matters to him, it's just really concerning to me. I have him on this list because I have to agree he's one of the best young point guards in the game. He looks really good. And if he can turn it around next year, he'd obviously be much higher. But for right now, that's why I have him at 12.
By the way, I can't wait for next free agency when you have cap room and you max Gary Hamilton. 'Cause I know that's coming.
Maybe. We'll see.
It's coming. Austin will be on another team by then. You'll be maxing Hamilton. I guarantee it.
All right. Might have to change plans now.
Anyway, back to the list. I got number 11, just outside the top 10, is the pretty well-known commodity. I was surprised he was so young still, but Bart Roser from the Knicks.
This is our first huge shift in list differential. So you'll see later.
You don't have Roser on the list, or you have him higher?
I have him higher.
Oh, I mean Roser, I believe he's a really, really good scorer in this league, but I just don't think he's a really, really good player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from.
I think he's always going to be a 25 points per game guy, and that's what makes him such a great player to have. But I just don't see I don't think he makes his teammates better. I don't think he's an elite defender. I don't think he's an elite rebounder. I just think he's a really, really good scorer, and that's basically it.
Okay. You'll hear my rebuttal when he's on my list, but I can definitely see points being made for him being this low. It all makes sense to me, so. All
right, so who's your number 11 then? Just outside the top 10.
My number 11, and I feel like my whole list is just full of shock value. My number 11, I got Omar Thomas to the 76ers.
Yeah, I kind of overlooked Omar Thomas a little bit on mine, but you'll see.
Yeah,
that's surprising, though. I think that is too low for him.
Yeah. I just, his rebound, for as much crap as we give Marcus Fleming about his rebounding, Omar Thomas is only like 0.5 higher than him this year. He's averaging 10.8 rebounds. His shooting percentage is way down, even from his career low previously.
Yeah, it's still pretty good though. 45% is plenty good.
Yeah, definitely. And he can't block at all. So there are cases to be made for him being this low, and that's why I looked at. What it really comes down to is when you're putting a list together like this, any flaws need to be taken into consideration. And I think his rebounding and his blocks, I think that it gives me enough of a case to put him here. So
it's so weird to see a big man with higher steal per game than block per game.
Yeah, that concerns me too. Also makes me wonder, like, what his defense would be as somewhere like small forward. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I don't think that Ron could really afford to be messing with Thomas, though. Just leave him at center and then just let him get 22 and 10 for the foreseeable future.
Well, I think if Ron's team continues to be this bad, he can mess with Omar Thomas all he wants, and it really wouldn't matter. But
True.
I mean, he's 7'2", 254. He's obviously not your ideal small forward, but at the same time, his handling's fine and his outside scoring is actually not bad. So it just makes me wonder if he'd actually do decently there Obviously, Ron will probably never try it and probably never trade him, so we'll never know. But it's just something I've always wondered. So
All right, now we got into the top 10 here.
top 10.
This is one of my favorite young players in EBL, but I couldn't put him higher than 10. It's Eric Beck of the Grizzlies.
All right.
He looks his ratings. He's a B minus or better at everything.
Yeah.
And he's only 21 right now, and he's putting up a 22, 8-5 season in his third year in the league.
Yeah.
With 2 steals a game.
Very
and he's
good.
only averaging 1.4 turnovers a game with great shooting percentages all around. I just don't see a weakness with him right now.
I don't either. I'm absolutely with you.
He's still got a little ways to go to become the player he can be, but right now, I think putting him at 10 is probably a low point. I could have put him in the top 5, and it wouldn't have been a huge deal at all.
No one would have really said anything about it, really.
Yeah. He's going to be the future of the league at small forward. I think that's for sure.
Here's a question I have for you. Have you ever checked his defense at any other position? Has Shadow ever checked that?
Good question. I don't think so.
Because he really looks like a Terrence Jones player to me. I mean, but better. You know what I mean? He's
got to get his rebounding up a little bit.
He's got to get his rebounding up a little bit, but I mean, he scores better. So there's definitely a case to be made there. And he's got the handling play point guard, but the size. I mean, he's actually bigger than Terrence Jones is. So I was just wondering, a player like that. I mean, obviously Shadow's never checked, so we don't really know, but it'd be interesting to me. Obviously, the Grizzlies don't really have a much better option than Beck, and they have someone like Slayton to come off the bench anyway, so they don't need to. But I was just wondering, could he be as good of a six man as Terrence Jones is?
Possible, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So just something interesting to me. I think I completely agree with you, though. He's on my list too, so you'll hear my thoughts on him.
All right, but who's your number 10 right now?
My number 10 is, I really had trouble with this, putting him above Omar Thomas, but I have a case for it. So, my number 10 is Brian Freeman of the Knicks. So,
I know you're a bigger Freeman fan than I am.
I love Freeman, and here's why. The Knicks are in the second seed of the East right now. They're 41-32, and they have a pretty good points per game allowed ratio. And really, the only 2 people on their team are Brian Freeman and Bart Roser. I mean, Jim Castanon is good for the future, but he's still a rookie this year. He's playing decently for a rookie, but he's nothing like lights out.
James McAdoo's having a good year, though.
James McAdoo's having a good year, but he's still only 15-10. I mean, that's not like a great year by any means. And PJ Harrison has always just been completely overrated and really nothing special ever. So I think for them to be this good, with Roser and Freeman being the only 2 great pieces they have, I understand McAdoo and Castanon are both good pieces, but they're not really there yet. I think it really says a lot for Freeman and Roser's value that they can be this good with those 2 leading their team. And I love Freeman. I love Freeman defensively. I think he's, besides Kenneth Marshall, I'd say he's the best defensive big man in EBL right now. So. And he's a good scorer. His shooting percentages drop, but I mean he's always been decent, and he's a great rebounder too. So I just really like him here at number 10, and I think his defense for me puts him above Omar Thomas. I'd rather have the defense and the rebounding than the scoring. So
now people have heard the pro and con of Brian Freeman.
Absolutely,
and he's a free agent this offseason, folks. So
yep,
if you want him, you can try to get him.
There are a lot. Oh, there's so many good free agents this year. It's unreal. But we'll get so sidetracked.
Number 9 now is from my list is Gary Hamilton.
Okay, all right.
I couldn't put him any higher than 9 because of the stuff you talked about. The stats are way down this year.
Right.
And his defense is only an A-. It's not great. It's good, but it's not great.
Right.
And in box scores I've seen, he gets burned a little too often for me.
Yeah, he does. I've noticed that too.
And his turnovers are just up. I mean, there's nothing really more to say about him. You know what he is at this point.
Yeah. I mean, he looks good. Hopefully he can turn it around from this year that he's having now. But for right now, you're right. Middle to late in this list is really all he could be.
Yeah, ninth is appropriate, I think.
Yeah.
All right, who's your number 9?
Number 9, I'm going to go with someone that you had a little bit lower. That's Eric Beck of the Grizzlies. We talked about him a little bit earlier, and I put him on here just based off his potential. I think he's fantastic, and I think he's only going to keep getting better. I couldn't justify putting him any higher right now because his shooting percentages are down from what they were, and there's just some players I find better than him right now. But I think if we do this list again in like a year or two, when he's like 23, 24, I think he could be like number 3 or number 2, maybe even number 1. So
It's very possible. I agree.
yep. So who do you got number 8?
Now, I was also surprised to see this guy eligible for the list, but he is until off season. It's Song Nu of the Mavs, number 8.
Yep. Yep.
I think it's pretty obvious why Song Nu is on this list because he just look at the Mavs from last year to this year, and he's the main difference from that. Him and Lau Devane.
Absolutely.
He's just a 2010 guy. For some reason, he's a really good 3-point shooter. He's a really good shot blocker. He's a really good rebounder. He doesn't turn over much. He doesn't really foul that much.
Yep.
He's an underrated passer. I mean, he's just a great all around player. The case can be made he's the best center in EBL right now.
I absolutely agree with that. I agree with everything you just said, and I'll go ahead and tell you that Song Nu is also number 8 on my list. So we have our first
little agreement there. How about that?
We have our first agreement there. So I definitely agree with you. I think he's just phenomenal. He makes every team he's on better. He's an elite defender. He's a great scorer. I mean, there's not much more to be said about Song Nu. If you don't understand why he's so good, then you just don't get it. So.
All right, since we agreed on number 8, we've got to get a little off the agreement now because my number 7 is Omar Thomas, who you just said lower.
I know for a fact we're going to disagree on number 7. Go ahead.
All right, Thomas. The thing about him is he's probably the best scoring big man in EBL right now.
Easily, I agree with you on that one. Easily.
His rebounding it could be a little bit of a problem, but I don't think it's a huge deal because he's average. 10.8 and 35.8 is probably a little above average. It's not bad, but it's not great. But he's only 21. This is only his 3rd training camp he's been through.
Yeah.
He's still got plenty of time to improve. I think trying him at small forward or power forward might actually be a good idea for Ron. Now that you mention it, but he's a great center right now, so there's really no denying his ability and his place on this list.
Absolutely. I mean, like I said when I put him so low, is that I could see every case in the world being made for him to be even higher. I just personally like a few. I'm a very big defense and rebounding guy for when it comes to centers and power forwards. So
I am too, but Thomas is kind of an exception to me for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I would not disagree with him being any higher than what I had him. That makes perfect sense to me. So. All
right. So who do you have number 7?
Number 7, I have Dale Smith of the Jazz.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. Top 7 for Dale Smith.
Top 7 for Dale Smith. This year for me really changed any perception I had about him before. The Jazz are so good with him. His points per game are way up. His shooting percentages are way up. His assists are up. His turnovers are down. He's good defensively, and he's only 22. I mean, I really like him. And what it comes down to is he might not be better per se than someone like Omar Thomas or Song Nu, but he is also at the most valuable position in EBL, the point guard position. And so
yeah, that's true.
That also played a part in me putting him this high on this list, is that he's one of the best young point guards in this league at the most valuable position in the league. So, I mean, I just think that if you tried to build around someone like Dale Smith, you really couldn't go wrong. I mean, he can score, he can assist, he can actually rebound pretty well for a point guard. He doesn't turn it over. He's efficient scoring. He's a good defender, good steals. He's just really good all the way around. You mentioned earlier in the podcast that you'll have to see what he does in the playoffs, and I agree with that. I will have to see what he does in the playoffs.
I still blame him most of all for the Knicks failing last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see. That'll be an interesting thing. If the Jazz do well, I think he'd be much higher on my list. If they bomb, I think I'd leave him off of it. But for right now, I kind of have him just based off his regular season success this year. I really like him a lot. So
you said that you think he's a big reason for the Jazz success, and I agree with you. But even with his numbers this year, I would say he still is only like the 4th best player on Utah. So I don't really know. I think if they do well, it'll be because of the other guys. If they do bad, it'll be because of Dale Smith.
Yeah, it's interesting. I agree with that. I don't think that's a testament, though, to saying Dale Smith isn't that good. I think it's just a testament to how good the Jazz are.
Yeah, I think he's good. If there was just were like a top 20, he would have made the list for sure.
I think he's around the same level as Virgil Williams. I'd put him there. They're scoring about the same. Their rebounds are about the same, and he's at a more valuable position and doing more with like the assists and stuff. And he actually has less turnovers than Virgil Williams. I'd say he's like the third best player right now on that team. So.
All right, so my number 6, I really wanted to put him higher, but I think number 6 is about where he belongs because he has the one big flaw, and that's Kenneth Marshall.
All right.
Because the one thing that he can't do, he just can't score. If you get that out of the way, he can't score more than 17 a game, no matter what option he is, no matter what system you run.
Yeah.
But there is no denying that he is the best defensive big man in EBL, hands down.
I mean, there's no question. Like
he's going to lead the league in rebounding and be among the leaders in block shots every year for the next 7-8 years, probably.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be Defensive Player of the Year almost every year too. So
he's still only 25, which makes him eligible for this list. But and he really is the main reason the T-Wolves are so good this year.
I mean, what it comes down to is he's really the new Anthony Davis, but with even a little bit better rebounding than what Davis could do.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. I think Marshall he's one of the most valuable players in EBL this season and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I actually have him a little bit higher, so I'll talk more about him when I get there. But
all right, who's your number 6 then?
My number 6 is also here because of one big flaw that he has, and that's Adrian Cool of the Hornets.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, I like Adrian Cool. I really like him a lot, but his turnovers are just so bad for me. I have him in the top 6 based on this year because his turnovers are down this year. If it were last year, I probably would have had him around 8 or 9. I hate turnovers. I hate them so much. I think that sinks teams. It really does. And they're down this year. He is one of the best scorers in EBL right now. I mean, that's you can't take that away from him. I mean, Tyree is better, Bonds is better, Pierre Lewis is better, but after that, it's really, you got to look at someone like Cool for being like the next best. He's always up there. So
I wouldn't even necessarily say that those guys are better than him. They're just having a little better season scoring wise.
Yeah, absolutely, that's true.
But Cool. He's got the weakness. He's got the handling, but I just can't see why you'd be this low on your list, even with the handling, because I just think he is the perimeter guy I have in the league right now. There's no young player I would take over him if I were like drafting these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if he does well in the playoffs this year and he's
had playoff success already before in the past.
Yeah, I mean not too much though. He
made the conference finals if he gets second year in the league.
Yeah, like I said, if he does well this year, their players are like more than him is what it comes down to. If he had better turnovers, he'd be like number 2 on my list. I pretty much guaranteed. So.
All right, so now we're in the top 5.
We are in the top 5,
and I'm starting this off interesting because my number 5 is Francisco Page.
Okay, someone that I had a lot lower.
He's also the highest big man on my list.
Okay.
Because I think again, just like Cool, I think Page is the big man to have in EBL right now. Okay. I think his handling is a problem, yes, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly a problem because 2.5 a game you could live with if he's putting up the numbers he puts up.
Okay.
I think his value is also diminished a little bit because JB is misusing him. He's using a very fast offense, which is horrible to play Page in.
Yep.
He should be in a slower normal. And number 2, he's playing him at center, which is just I don't understand that at all.
Well, I think JB is just trying to tank this year.
But I think, obviously. But I mean, back in 2022, he averaged 23.9 points a game and 14.2 rebounds a game.
Yeah.
And 4 blocks a game. And at that point, there was nobody you would take over him in the league as far as young players go. And
Absolutely.
I think he's still that player. I just think JB hasn't been using him to that full potential the past 2 years.
I mean, like I said, when I had him that low on my list, I expect to take a lot of criticisms for him, and I expect him to be a much higher on your list. I'm a very diverse guy when it comes to what I look for, in players, what I do with this and that. So it definitely makes sense that he's top 5. I see every argument for it. He's definitely a great player.
I think if you have cap room this offseason and you want a big man, he's the guy you go after number 1 before anybody else. That's just my opinion.
Page is probably going to be the hot commodity, him and Cool. So.
All right, so who's your number 5 then?
My number 5 is also someone that you had much lower, and I expect to take a lot of flack for this. It's Bart Roser for the Knicks.
I mean, I've said what I said about him. What do you have to say?
My argument is exactly almost the same argument I made for Freeman, which is these two are pretty much leading their teams in the East, and Bart Roser has never had a year where he's averaged under 24 points a game. Even his rookie year, he averaged 24.5. He is consistently one of the best scorers in EBL. And I disagree with you when you said that I don't think he makes his teammates better. I think he helps out a lot. I think that's one of the reasons that James McAdoo's having a good year. I think that's one of the reasons Jim Castanon's having such an efficient rookie campaign. Bart Roser's averaging 4.3 assists a game. His turnovers are 2.3, which is a little bit high, but I mean, it's no worse than someone like Cool or someone like that. For him to have a good assist number, he can rebound decently, and he's one of the best scorers in EBL. He's not a problem on defense. He's not one of the best defenders in the league, but he's not an issue there. And, he's only 24, and he's got really good size. He's 6'8", 222. I mean, he matches up well against almost anyone you put him with. I really like him a lot. I think that he's one of the premier shooting guards to have in this league. I didn't feel that way a few seasons ago, but just his constant success has really...
one reason I just thought of why I have him so low is because I think he's peaked right now. I don't think he can get any better than this.
Yeah, and I think
the guys above him that I've listed, they all have higher potential than him still.
I would agree with that, but I don't see him having a huge drop off. I don't see him having like a... It's kind of like Mark Day, where Mark Day peaked and he just kind of stayed like where he was for ages. But if Bart Roser were to do that, he would just stay a 26 point per game player, and I would be more than okay with having that on my team. So,
all right, now it gets into the really, really elite players. So you could have any order really here.
You really could.
My number 4 is Ray Bonds right now of the Warriors.
I'm really interested in what your list looks like because I have someone at number 4 who you had a while ago. So
I had Ray Bonds number 2 at one point. I had him number 3 at one point, but I ultimately dropped him to number 4 because I believe he is not the same player as shooting guard that he is a point guard. But at point guard, he's a turnover machine. So
right,
really tough to figure out which way you want to play him. You want to live with the turnovers and huge stats, or do you want to see a drop off in stats, but also a drop off in turnovers?
Absolutely.
But either way, he is still one of the best young players in the league right now because he could score at a huge level, 48% shooting this year. He could rebound great. He could pass good. He's even a good passer as a shooting guard.
Oh yeah,
really good stealer. He doesn't foul very much. He's a hugely efficient player in the league right now.
He's very good, very good.
He's an MVP candidate, where he was at one point this year.
He probably still is, honestly.
I don't think the Warriors are good enough.
Yeah, I can see it. But, I mean, think about it now. He's a natural... I mean, he's back playing natural shooting guard. He still has those really high assist numbers from where he was a point guard. That's going to play a factor, so...
Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see. I definitely agree with you about him.
Who's your number 4, then?
My number 4 is Kenneth Marshall.
I can see that.
I've raved about him so much, and so it's pretty well known how I feel about him at this point. I think he is just the class big man to have right now. I feel about him like how you feel about Page. I understand his scoring will never be that great, but I mean, even if, he has to be the focus, he can still get 17, 18 points a game. And for someone who is that good of a defender and that good of a rebounder, I mean, I never heard complaints about Josh Smith's offense. I never heard complaints about Anthony Davis's offense. But now when Kenneth Marshall can't get past 17 points per game, when he's just as good of a defender and just as good of a rebounder as those two guys were, even better than Josh Smith was, now all of a sudden we have problems about, Marshall being able to score this and that, and I just don't understand. He's an efficient scorer. He's the best defender in the league, not named Pierre Lewis probably. And I just think he is the class big man to have. I don't think you can go wrong with having Kenneth Marshall on your team.
I agree with everything you said except for the class thing, because I think Page is that. But because I think Page can not only do what Marshall does defensively, I think he could also score, which is why I take Page over Marshall.
Yeah. Yeah,
But Marshall's great though. I would love that. If I were a GM, I would love to have Marshall on my team
yeah. I mean,
over almost any player in the league, really.
yeah, you really just can't go wrong. A lot of people gave Koo slack for trading Quran for a power forward, but they just didn't get it, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's not just a power forward. Baldwin made the same trade offer, almost same trade offer to me back when I had Quran, and I can't remember why I turned it down. There's a reason for that. Oh, I think he was asking for Westbrook too or something, but it was definitely a good trade for Koo, and I completely understand why he did it, and that it worked out great for him. Obviously, the Timberwolves are great right now, so.
Now we're into the elite of the elite here, the top three.
The top three. I want to know so badly who you have here.
Number three is someone you had much lower you criticized. It's Adrian Cool.
Okay, all right, I get it.
I have Cool this side because I think as I mentioned already, I think he is probably the best scorer in the league right now, other than Pierre Lewis.
Right.
I think his turnovers are a huge problem, yes, but I think if a guy can put up 30 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 3.5 assists a game, you live with 3 turnovers a game. That's just what my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he's a great shooter. I think he's a great defender. I think he's a great everything. I just don't see any weaknesses to him other than turnovers, which I don't think are a huge deal. Unless it's above like 3.5, then it's a huge deal. But he's never been above that number, which is good enough for me. I think he should be the number one target this offseason of every GM to max, because if you can get an Adrian Cool, you're gonna have a great team.
Yep. I agree. I mean, I had him at number 6, and even I said I could definitely see him being top 5, top 3. So that it makes sense to me. I mean, I have a little bit of problem with the turnovers.
Yeah, we just disagree on that, on the turnovers.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it makes him a bad player or anything. He's definitely one of the best players in the league right now. You can't go wrong with having him on your team. So.
All right, but who's your number 3 then?
Number 3, I have a guy one spot ahead of you. I have Ray Bonds at number 3.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really everything you just said. I mean, the reason I have him number 3, because I really debated it on having him number 2. The reason I settled on number 3 is because this is his first year doing this. I mean, last year he was an 18 point per game player. Year before, he didn't even start, so he just came off the bench. It's just, this is his first year with numbers like this. So if that can keep up, he would be more valuable to me in the long run. But for right now, he just kind of seems like a one-year wonder to me. Obviously, his stats look really good. His attributes are incredible. But, maybe if he has a bad TC, he drops to like B- outside or B handling, not B- outside, B+ outside. But, I mean, either way, like, it just seems weird for me to put someone in the top 2 when they've only had 1 year looking like they do. I agree.
I agree with you there.
I couldn't justify it. So
I assume we have the same one too, but I'll just say it anyway. My number 2 is David O'Neal of the Pistons.
I guarantee you we have the same 2-1. So
yeah, then it's pretty obvious who number 1 is. But anyway, David O'Neal, he's just the best. He's just the best point guard in the league right now. There's no denying it. He made the first team all league last year. He's on the best East team by far, and he's the best player on that team by far. He averages 23 points a game, 10 assists a game, only 2.3 turnovers a game, which is a really low number for a point guard who handles the ball as much as he does.
Right.
He could shoot the 3. He's a decent rebounder, not great, but he's a good defender on a really good defending team, and he's just the best point guard in the league right now. There's nobody better than him.
He is the best point guard in the league at the most valuable position on the league, on the best team in the East. I mean, and he's under 25. There's no arguments really to be made for why he should be. If anyone said he should be any lower than number 2, they just wouldn't understand how the game works. They wouldn't get it. I mean, you really can't argue with him being here, but you can't put him at number 1 either, because I'm going to go ahead and assume that you have the same number 1 as I do.
Yeah, it's pretty odd. It doesn't even need to be said, but it's Pierre Lewis of the Nuggets, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate that he's still under 25. I feel like he should be like 28 at this point.
Yeah, he should be 32 for all he's done already. I mean,
I know.
He's going to end up with 7 titles or something by the time he's done.
He's just so good.
There's what more can you say about Pierre Lewis? He's just the best player in the league. He's going to be the best player in the league for a long time. He's gone from having a weakness at 3-point shooting to being a 3-point shootout champion.
Right.
He's the best inside scorer in the league. He makes his teammates immensely better.
Best defender in the league.
best defender in the league easily. He doesn't turn it over. He doesn't foul. He just doesn't have weakness. He's the best.
He gets 8+ rebounds a game at shooting guard.
Yeah, I guess maybe his free throw percentage is a little weak, but still, even with that.
I'll take it.
Yeah, we're really nitpicking if we're talking about free throw percentage.
I can't imagine Polo offering Pierre Lewis to any GM and then looking at him and going, I don't know, his free throw percentage is a little bit down.
Yeah, if Polo ever offers you Pierre Lewis, say yes immediately. Just say go post a trade without him even responding.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what kind of moron would have traded him from their team. That's just unbelievable. So
you weren't the only ones though. So both Bowers did it too.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't really make me feel too much better though. I'm in a category with both of the Bowers. So
all right, this was fun to do this article.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully people find it entertaining, our thoughts on these players.
Yeah, we're going to post, like I said, I'm going to post a link to how to find it, and we're going to have written versions of it in the podcast, too. So for you lazy people.
Right. Yeah, this total is going on about an hour and a half now, so we got to finish it up.
Absolutely.
Good luck to all the playoff teams. I'm hoping for a really good postseason this year.
Yeah, it should be fun.
I think the West should be a lot of fun. Very unpredictable.
I mean, I'm sitting at the bottom of the league looking in, so I really just get to sit back and enjoy this one. So.
Yep. All right.
I'm excited for it. Thank you guys for joining us and listening to us. We'll see you again next time.
See ya.